Hey guys, it's Daniel. Welcome back to the Jeep EV conversion project. I first wanted to apologize for not uploading a video for a while. I've just been really busy with schoolwork and haven't had too much time to work on the project, but nevertheless, I've been making progress and I wanted to share that with you. So this video, we're going to be looking at what I've been doing in terms of mounting the electric motor and securing it within the Jeep. So that's what we're going to be covering this video, and stay tuned. If you recall last video, we mated the electric motor and transmission outside of the Jeep. I retained the clutch and flywheel and used an adapter to connect the two together in the process. Now what we have to do is to mount the transmission and electric motor back into the Jeep with the electric motor this time in place of the engine. I first removed the shifter stick from on top of the transmission in order to make it easier to slide the electric motor transmission under the Jeep. This is because the plan was to lift and mount the electric motor and transmission into the Jeep from under the vehicle. We used a hydraulic jack to lift the transmission and motor into the Jeep and used jack stands to support it on either side as we went. This way, we would basically jack up the transmission and motor a few inches at a time and raise the jack stands a little bit to support it each time. This took a lot of time and was pretty sketchy because the transmission and motor, which probably total about 150 to 200 pounds, were not well supported. Once the transmission was high enough, we could bolt in the crossbeam that supports the transmission from under the car and support the electric motor with a jack stand until we could secure it in the engine bay. This was obviously a really painful process and would have been a much easier if we had a transmission jack, but we made it work. It just took a lot longer. Huge thanks to my friends Max and Joey for helping me with this part of the project. I wouldn't have been able to do it without them. It was time to secure the electric motor in the engine bay. The plan for mounting the electric motor within the engine bay was to essentially take the electric motor, which is sketched out in gray in this case, and attach it to a motor mounting plate through the two bolt holes on the back of the motor. This motor mounting plate would then attach to the underside of a crossbeam going between the two engine mounts within the engine bay of the Jeep, and therefore attach the electric motor to the engine bay through the existing engine mounts. To mount the electric motor in the engine bay, we first had to reposition the existing engine mounts, or so we thought. This was actually completely unnecessary, and we ended up moving the engine mounts back into their original locations. But nevertheless, this is what we did first. And then we also started drilling holes in the crossbeam we were using to mount the electric motor. Okay, so right now we're trying to mount the motor within the engine bay and kind of secure it. So basically what we have here is just a massive crossbeam going across the two engine mounts that's just sitting on top of them right now, and the idea is to take this motor mount, bolt it into the motor like this, and then mount that to the underside of the crossbeam so the motor is held up by this mount and this crossbeam. This was the first iteration of our mounting design, and we noticed a pretty big problem with it in that in this configuration the electric motor was not able to be raised enough when attached to the underside of the crossbeam through the motor mounting plate in order to bridge and close the gap between the top of the transmission and the underside of the transmission tunnel. Therefore, we ended up having to put spacers in between the ends of the metal crossbeam and the engine mounts in order to raise the whole configuration up about 3 inches or so. We decided to use two 1.5 inch Delrin blocks for each spacer. Okay, so we've got two of the spacers bolted in right now, and I'm gonna start drilling these next two for this engine mount right here. After this, we just had to drill holes in the crossbeam to allow for bolts that would connect it to the spacers, engine mounts, and motor mounts. Okay, so we got the bolts in, and these mounts are all in with the bolts lined up. We're actually going to get some smaller bolts, shorter bolts, sorry, because these are a little bit too long on the bottom. And then once we've got this all mounted and secured, we're going to mount this, take the actual engine mount and start drilling holes for that in this crossbeam. Overall, this is probably a pretty janky design right now, just with the Delrin spacers, because they're not super sturdy and secure. Even when we're gonna bolt it in, we're thinking it's probably not going to be super sturdy. So we'll probably either change these spacers out for a more sturdy material and make new ones, or we're probably just going to actually like machine this whole mount out of metal once we get everything secure. But for now, this is what we're working with, and we're gonna see if we're just gonna get everything lined up and see if it kind of holds the weight of the motor, at least temporarily.
Now that we've lined everything up and bolted everything in place, all the components will line up perfectly, right? Well, not exactly. What we soon realized was that the electric motor, when we lifted it up, actually ended up coming up a lot more slanted with respect to the crossbeam than we thought. And so we ended up actually moving the left engine mount back to its original location in the engine bay, which ended up giving the crossbeam a much more slanted position as it came across the motor. But it actually allowed us to use more holes on the motor mounting plate when bolting it into the crossbeam. And just like that, we were done with the motor mount. Now I do want to say, like I said earlier, that the motor mount is a little bit sketchy in its design at the moment, and we'll probably replace it with something more sturdy and with less moving parts in the future. But for now, that is what we have in place. Stay tuned for the next video, which is going to be on wiring the batteries. Hey guys, I just want to say thank you for watching the video. Feel free to donate to my GoFundMe, or don't if you don't want to. All this money is going towards the EV conversion process and the surrounding initiatives I'm starting with it, which include things like these videos, hoping to educate sort of the surrounding community and inspire students like me around the country to help the environment and reduce carbon emissions. So if you want to support me in that sense, feel free to donate. Otherwise, just keep watching the videos, and hope you all have a great day.